Alright, welcome back to the channel. So what does it really cost to build a roller like this, or in my case, buy one like this? Alright, so here we are. You can see the roller's a little different than the last video you saw. I'll be doing an update video here probably later this week of kind of where I stand on progress on this car, what's going on with the car right now, and the first steps to kind of get it going to building the car. But I don't know if a lot of y'all saw, there's a great video out there right now on Cameron Johnson Racecars, CJRC. He makes a lot of the no prep king cars, or not a lot of them, but he makes some of them. Anyways, long story short, they just recently did a video on what it costs to do a no prep king's roller. And they were talking like, you know, like an all steel, all glass car or stock quarters and roof car, a steel car. But anyways, long story short, they ended up rounding out that a no prep king's roller is like $180,000 to $200,000. And in my last video, when I announced this car, I had a lot of people talking, and I mentioned as well that I want to do a video like this, because I think even people think like this style car is significantly cheaper than what it actually costs to build one of these. By the time, and we're talking roller, no electronics, no engine, no transmission, no fuel system, rolling. And rollers can come in different states, you know, wheels, tires, so on and so forth. But in this case, we're gonna go complete roller. And in my mind, a complete roller has all the body panels, wheels, tires. It just does not have any electronics, any fuel system, any engine or transmission or cooling system. Like, it is just a bare car. But it has brakes, suspension, rear end, so on and so forth. So this would be what I would consider a complete roller, ready to build into a race car. So a lot of people just don't think like, what all does it take to do that between the body work and mounting a front end and putting the lightweight doors on it, tubing a front end. Everyone just thinks, oh, you know, putting the chassis in, which 25.3, 25.5 chassis can be cheap, but they can be costly too. It just depends, and we'll go over that here in a sec. But then like mini tubs or tubs and all the tin work and the rear end housings and brakes and suspension, and just going through the list of stuff. So let's we're gonna move over here. I'm gonna get on the dry race board, and we're just gonna go through just a real quick, what would it cost to build one of these? Because I did this list, I was this close to just starting from scratch and saying, okay, I'm just gonna get a shell and I'm gonna build one from the ground up. Not only was it gonna take me a year plus to achieve that, even if I did all of the labor myself, I think, you know, you're still talking 6 months worth of work, maybe longer, even if you could get all the parts and get everything coordinated that fast. Hundreds of hours of work. But so let's just sit down with the dry race board and let's see what it, you know, if we were to build one of these from scratch, what would it cost? So we're here at my fab table. I got a dry race board, and I'm just gonna kind of go through real quick, you know, the high level points. This is gonna include everything, and we're gonna do this kind of two ways. We're gonna do one assuming you could do everything and you were just buying all the parts. I'll go over that, and then we'll do one as if you were to have a quote-unquote shop do it all. Let's say you dropped a shell off at one of the top chassis shops in the nation, whether it be someone that kind of builds an outlaw small tire car like this, that's just gonna take a Mustang shell and do it all the way up, or even someone like, you know, Larry Jeffers or Cameron Johnson or so one of those guys that would take a car or maybe build a chassis car, so on and so forth. And we'll just kind of go through this. So let's start with a shell. You know, shells, a lot of people already have them, so we'll go from free to, you know, a clean shell with no rust. Nowadays, $5,000, it just sounds silly, but a 4-cylinder car stripped that is clean body panels with no rust, it'll bring $5,000. It's crazy. So then we got the cage. All right, so this one varies a lot. If you were to build it yourself, you could probably get the chrome ollie for like $1,500, $2,000, chromoly's up, but I'll look at like more chassis. They sell a kit, and that's who I was looking at doing, just to put that out there. They sell a kit, it's like $3,000, $3,500, and it is a 25/3 cage, and it's all pre-bent. You still gotta notch it, you still gotta weld it, it's a lot of work. Still, in retrospect, so we'll talk about that. So we'll say, you know, $3,500 to, so now if you were just to drop your car off at a chassis shop and say, hey, I want a 25/3 chassis, cut the floors out, do a chassis, or leave the floors in and do them above or below, whatever. It varies so much. Guys that, you know, you can get quotes for $10,000, $15,000. A great example is More Chassis was just selling a welded one. So they have a kit, the kit I was just talking about, and they'll weld the entire thing for you. So it'll fit inside your body. So all you got to do is cut out the floor, and like you can drop the shell onto their welded thing. And then you got to, you know, attach it to the car, so on and so forth. But anyways, that retails, I think it's like 10 or 12 grand for the cage like that. And I think that's about right. A 25/3 chassis from a chassis shop is anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 if you drop off the car. We'll lowball it, because I'm not trying to inflate this number. We'll lowball it, $10,000. That's for someone to build the cage. $3,500 if you do it yourself, maybe a little cheaper. $10,000 if you have someone do it. Rear end. So, and granted, keep in mind, everyone here, we're not talking a budget build. This is not a build for budget. No, this is what it takes to build, quote unquote, loosely top-notch roller. So this is going to be the nicest parts that you can do. I'm not trying to buy some old 8.8 that's braced and, you know, no, we're not doing that. We're not putting, you know, cheap shocks on this. We're talking top tier parts. If you were wanting to build a top tier competitive small tire car roller, what's it going to cost? Rear end. So More Chassis, Marty Marilat, all them, they're pretty much the same. A nice housing from any of those places ready to go in a Fox is about $4,000. And that's got endless adjustments and just all sorts of stuff. Let me get my phone. I took notes, so I was ready to go. Okay, and then, you know, axles and center section and everything else. We'll put axles, center. So that's another $3,000 on the cheap side. If you do like a 9.5-inch gear set, Strange Ultra, blah, 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 40 spline gun drilled axles and the star flange and everything, it's probably a little more, but safe bet, we'll say about $3,000. And we're just going to keep going. So next, you know, parachutes, that's on most rollers. 1, 2 parachutes, whatever. This one has 2. I'd say if you're building a fast small tire car, you're going to have 2 parachutes. Those are CO2 launchers, Stroud, you know, with the cage and everything, fab work, all that. I'd be surprised if a shop would actually do it for $2,000. That's pretty much the parts. The parts are like $1,500 to $2,000. So we're just going to put $2 grand. For your parachutes, you got your wing in the back. Most are going to have a wing. Wings range, you know, this one has like carbon adjusters on it. Those are like $500-600. The wing itself is like $600-700. The bigger spill plates are like, you know, it's fab time work, painting it. We'll call it $1,500. Really, that's probably on the cheap side for a wing. I'm going to run out of room on here. So I think that kind of takes up the tail end. So we got the housing, the parachutes, the wing, and the cage. So now let's go back up to the front, tube front. Once again, if you were to do it yourself, it's a lot of labor to cut out like all the sheet metal and the strut towers and like tube the front and leave the factory frame rails and clean it all up. It's a lot of work. I did it on my last Fox after I wrecked it. Lot of work, and I'm not a pro, but anyways, I've had other shops quote it anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 for a shop to do that. The reason I'm using a shop on that and the cage, because realistically, I would like, you know, the $10,000 up here, and then the tube front end, we'll split the difference and say $4 grand. The reason I would say to use a shop is, like, you know me, I have access to a bender. I can bend the bars. I can build a chassis. I can read a chassis book. I can build a 25/3 cage. I could build a tube front end. I did one. It turned out okay. But the reason I would use a professional for that, for most people out there that are building these kind of cars, is because you want to use and lean on the expertise of a pro like that. Someone like 10 Soldiers or More Chassis or one of them that kind of specialize in Fox bodies. These guys are building these day in and day out, and they see their cars being raced day in and day out. So they know when they're building a 25.3 chassis, it's like, oh, hey, we really need to tie in the chassis to the frame rail here, and we really need to, brace it like this. We've seen, cars that go low 1060 foots repetitively, they'll start cracking here, or they'll start having issues here, and they really need to be braced here, and the rear end will twist at this point, and we really need to do this, so on and so forth. That stuff is critical, and most people don't know that. It's like, yeah, anyone can build, not anyone, but most people that are good with cars can build a 25.3 chassis. I could build one, absolutely. I could bend all the tubes, I could notch it, I could build it. But when it comes to building an amazing chassis that's gonna be rigid, strong, lightweight, and last a long time and go repeated good 60 foots, I can't do that. I don't have that knowledge. And someone that's built 5 chassis, yeah, they may be getting there, but really, like, you want to deal with a company that's been 50, 100 of these or more, and they just know, and they have years and years of experience of building amazing chassis in these cars, and they know how to do them. Same with the tube front ends. How do you make a tube front end super strong, yet super light, and have all the room to do all the activities that you need to do? Takes experience. Experience is huge when you're talking to building rollers. Anyone can go buy an engine or do this or do that, and you'll lean on the engine builder for that experience. Same thing goes with a roller. Yeah, I could build one, but I don't have that experience. So when I was gonna do this, I was gonna go through this process and build it myself. I was gonna use More Chassis to do it, and I was gonna do it like a collab. Me and him got pretty serious. I was gonna do a collab with him, because they even have an option. So like if you buy their cage kits, and they'll weld the floor for you. So you can get the lower bars all welded up. They have an awesome chassis jig. They'll weld it all so it's perfectly level. Then I can bring it back to my house and put it up to my car and then weld the rest of the cage in around it. And I'm guaranteed to have a perfectly flat thing. So there's all sorts of options, but I was gonna lean on them to get me started and get that stuff going, so I know I'm off to a good point. And then he was gonna help me on like how to tie it in and where to tie into the frame rails, and this is how you tie into the frame rails, and you notch them here and you brace them here and you do this and do that. I don't know any of that. So anyways, I'm getting long-winded on that subject, but I think it's an important one. Lean on a professional for that kind of stuff. It's not just buying parts. Parts are expensive, but knowledge is the important part here. So let's keep going on. One thing I forgot to do up here that I just, 2 things actually, so we'll add them up here. Torque boxes. You gotta have torque boxes. I hear it's hard to put them in. This car's already got Merillat's adjustable, crazy adjustable torque boxes. The torque boxes themselves, $1,000, but I think it's like $2,000 to $3,000 in labor to put them in. So we'll split the difference and just say, $2,000 on torque boxes. Whether you do it yourself, you don't, doesn't matter. Tin work, that's a huge deal. Tubs and tin work, really. So we'll do tub and tin. I don't even know if you can see that. Don't worry, I'll show it when we're done. Tubs and tin work. Yeah, tubs are cheap. You can get tubs for a few $100. To put them in, totally different story. So when I was gonna build one, I was gonna do carbon tubs because I want to do all carbon. Carbon tubs are a little more expensive. And we're not talking like a mini tub. We're talking a true tub. That's how you get this super low ride height. You need a full-size tub in there so you can bring the wheel in a little bit and really sit it down. I'd say most are gonna have that. Installing tubs is a lot, and then the tin work is tons. To get good tin work, for just the back half. So like my car's just from, the main hoop back is all nice tin work. And it's tin, it's not even carbon. But to get someone to do that is several $1,000s. Yeah, I could do it. No, I'm not that good at it. When it comes to tin work, once again, I want someone that does it all the time. They're really good at it. Carbon is even more. I talked to someone about like carbon floors in cars. Like if I cut everything out and did a cage, how much would you charge me to put carbon floors in there? Like, man, to be honest, it's like $10,000 to $15,000. It's like, what? It's crazy. Just tin work, I think, ends up being $3,000 to $5,000 depending, and then labor to install the mini tubs. Carbon's that much more. It's a lot more work. So long story short, we're gonna say like tubs and tin work, we're gonna go like $5 grand. I think that's just a good middle of the road number. Yeah, you can do it yourself and come out way cheaper. If you hire a pro and do carbon, it's gonna be double that. So we'll just say 5 grand. Okay, so we're moving on. Front end, we did tube front end, 4 grand. K member, you got your K and A arms. Those are gonna be, you know, probably $1,000 for K member A arms. Front and rear shocks, let's just say struts and shocks. We'll just call it all shocks. You know, my front sand huffs, I think they're like 3,500, 4 grand for the sand huffs. They're spindle mounts. They're pricey. The Mensker canisters in the back, I think they're like 2,500, 3 grand. So top tier suspension, we can round and say about 6 grand. You could pay more, you could pay a little less. 6 grand is a pretty good number. That'll get you top tier radial suspension. Brakes, front and rear brakes, you know, TBMs or Strange or whoever, it's 2 grand. Yeah, you may have to buy some spindles and some brackets, whatever. It's 2 grand. That's not wiring them in. Let's assume you're gonna plumb the brakes yourself. Most people probably do that anyways. Brakes, wheels. I am way running out of room here. Wheels, $5,000 for, you know, decent set. I bet you couldn't even get welds for 5 grand anymore. I think they're 6 grand or more for a complete set of welds. Wheels are getting crazy expensive. Bodywork. Bodywork's a big one. So, and I'm gonna assume you're gonna fit most of this yourself. If you pay a shop, it can get really expensive really quick. But like a one-piece nose, it's like $2,000 to get the, you know, mounting pieces, another several $100. So we'll say like 2,500 bucks. And that's just fiberglass, that's not even carbon, fiberglass. Doors, fiberglass doors are like 1,000, 1,500 bucks. By the time you get the latches and the locks and the handles and the Lexan kit and everything, you'll be, and the hinges, I don't know if you could do fiberglass doors for 2,000, 2,500 bucks or so. So, you know, we'll say between doors and the front end, 5 grand. And actually we'll keep, yeah, cause like mine has a fiberglass deck lid and a fiberglass one-piece rear bumper. That's probably another, between those two, that's another $1,000. So we're at $6,000 for your body stuff. Optic armor, front optic armor is like 700 bucks now. Rear one's like 500. So we'll say, we'll just call it, you know, optic is 1,000 bucks. Quarter windows, if you do those are probably, you know, carbon or Lexan, they're 1,000 bucks. I mean, we're obviously saving all the weight we can. A debatable topic is a carbon roof. Depends on the class you're racing. A lot of classes require steel roof, steel quarters. If you're just building an awesome small tire car, you want to get out all the weight you can. There's a lot of weight in the roof to get out between the structure and the skin. I think there's 30 to 50 pounds on a Fox to get out of the roof. Carbon roofs are expensive. They're 1,500 bucks. To install one, it's a ton of labor. And then you got to get it painted as well. Like, I don't think you could come out of a carbon roof for under like $2,000 to $3,000 with paint. And let's just not assume paint because we got to paint the whole car. So let's say, you know, carbon roof installed, it's probably 2,500 bucks. That's probably something you want a pro to do. I've done a couple of roof installs, but yeah, it's a lot of work. So we'll say 2,000 bucks. What do we got left? Dash and like a dash, a custom steering column, you know, a rack and all that, you know, like to finish out the inside, a seat and seat mounts. You know, that's pretty normal in a roller. And then like parachute handle, like just to kind of clean out the interior, finish up with all the little pieces, brakes, you know, controllers, whatever, rack, steering, you know, get everything so you can steer and stop the car. All that stuff I listed you couldn't get for 1,000 bucks. So we'll have to say like $2,000 for miscellaneous, and that's probably way low. To be honest, the miscellaneous to finish out a roller, I bet $5,000 at least. Probably 10, but we'll just lowball it, say 2 grand to get it rolling, braking, steering, stopping. And then, so what do we got left? Paint it, right? And then you gotta paint it. I don't think a car like that, that's starting from scratch, even if it was a clean body, they're gonna have to, you know, sand the carbon. They may have to finish fitting your doors and your fenders and, you know, the roof and the wing and blah, 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 blah. I would be amazed if you could get an average paint job for under $8,000 to $10,000 on a race car. Paint's super expensive. I've painted a bunch of cars. I've had friends that have painted a bunch of cars. I'm telling you, like, the buddy prices are always 6 to 8 grand. 10 grand is a good round number. Like, I don't see you taking a car like that and going, hey, I need to get everything painted inside the doors, inside the trunk, inside the hood, everything outside. Awesome, nice job, prep work, 10 grand for sure. So here we are. Let me grab the camera and reposition because we're gonna add this up real quick. Okay, I tried to get it the best I could here, just kind of hang tight with this. So we're just gonna go down and I'm gonna do like the professional build way that I would recommend to do it, not the do everything yourself and, you know, end up with something that may not be good. And I'll still assume you're getting a free shell even. So 10,000 cage, you know, we're at 17, 19, 24, 25.5, 26.5, 32.5. Hang on with my math, 39.5, 45.5, 47.5, 52.5, another 6 grand, 58.5, and paint, you know. So we're at 60 grand just in parts pretty much. Yes, we're having someone do the cage, but a lot of these numbers are on the low side too. 60 grand in parts and then paint is another 10 grand. So we're at 70K. And like I said, this is on the low side. I feel like when I seriously looked into this, I was at 80 to 90, and that's with paint, but that's doing most of it myself. Having, you know, certain people do certain things, but in the end, I was gonna be at 80 and 90 grand. I didn't include like just tons of bolts and mounting and Zeus fasteners and like fitting this and fitting that and that's even a lot of doing that yourself. And we're at 70 grand, and we're not too far. Like I said, I went cheap on a lot of this stuff. A lot of this would be a lot more, and I'm missing, you know, a good chunk of parts still. Painting the cage, that's super expensive. Painting the front end, that's an additional cost. Tires, you know, another $1,000. You know, all the upper and lower control arms, a wishbone if you're doing a wishbone, you know, beadlock bolts. You know, a lot of these cars have like titanium beadlock bolts or titanium rear studs. That all adds up. Parachute, deploy, I mean, just all this stuff adds up. Fire suppression systems. I bought 2 rollers now, both have fire suppression systems. That's another $1,000+. Dash mounts for like screens and seatbelt mounts and seatbelts and shifters, and like it just, both my rollers had shifters. Those are $1,000. So it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So let me cut, you kind of take a peek at this. 70 grand is this quick list that I did. You know, was on the low side on this, 60,000 parts, and that's assuming a free shell. To be honest, you know, I would have had to buy a shell. I didn't have a shell, so I'd tack on at least another $5,000. Now I got to go get the shell, so on and so forth. So yes, my number was like 80 to 90 to do this whole thing and do most of the work myself. And there you go. So let me cut, and we're going to talk about this. All right, some people may find this really long-winded, really boring. I'm probably already over 20 minutes on just talking about the costs. You know, there's a lot to it, and we haven't even got into like the time. How long does it take to do something like that? You know, like I said, I was hoping I could get to a roller state in like 6 to 8 to 10 months. However, no chassis shops could get me in anytime soon. So not only, let's say you booked your appointment a long time ago and you already had an appointment for a chassis shop and you're dropping it off tomorrow. A chassis shop to do everything that we just listed. If you took them a shell and say, hey, I want this to be an amazing, lightweight, small tire car, how much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? I would safely say most shops won't do this level of build for under $100,000. This roller, if you were to take this to a legit chassis shop, it would be over $100,000 to build this. That's probably not even painted. And it would take them a long time. You know, from what I gather, there is probably several hundred hours, 300 to 500 hours probably to get to this point. I mean, you're talking labor alone, you know, it's probably $50,000 in labor for someone to do that. Yes, some of that's cage work, the rest is just doing everything. And that's not even getting to, I'd say, a hardcore standpoint. You know, like this car, a lot of the inner structure has been cut out to make it lighter. And tons of stuff's been done to get it at a minimum weight possible. Guess what? That all costs money. It's crazy how much, you know, something like this costs. So, I'm going to reveal, I am not trying to hide what I paid for this car, but I want to hear your guesses now. Now that you've heard everything, like, you know, like, you're not going to go find this car for $30,000. It's not going to happen. And so, Yeah, let's hear it. Put your comments down below. I'll do this. The one that gets the closest to what it costs for this roller, and we'll just say what I paid, because mine came with electronics. Keep that in mind. Granted, I would have paid it with or without electronics, but it came with a lot of electronics. It was like $13,000, $14,000 in electronics. It came with that. It came with a shifter. It came with 2 hoods, carbon hood. Oh, I didn't even put carbon hood on there. There's another $1,500, $2,000. Gosh, how did I forget that? So anyways, but you put your comment down below. Whoever gets the closest, whether you hit it on the head, what I paid, or you get the closest, I'm going to come up with some cool swag pack. And I'm not just saying that, like, I'll get a bunch of stickers together. I may throw in some parts or something. I'll figure out something super cool to give out. But let's hear your guess down below. What does it cost? In my next video, when I do an update on where I'm at on this car, the very first part, I'll say who won and I'll say how much this car cost me. So that's going to wrap up this video. Sorry it's long-winded, but a lot of people really like this technical stuff, and you know, everyone likes talking about money. So there you go. $100,000 probably wouldn't get you a roller like this if you were to do it new, and you're going to have to wait at least a year. So, I mean, that's just why I buy rollers like this. You save a ton of time, you save a ton of money, and I still get to build it out how I want. I'm going to send the shocks back and have them freshened up. I'm doing, you know, anything that is serviceable. The brakes I'm going to service. I'm going to go through the entire roller to make sure it's safe and good, but I save a ton of money and a ton of time. It's just, it makes sense to buy cars like this. Granted, I'd still love to do one from scratch. Maybe I will someday. But, so, leave your comment below what you think I paid. I'll see you guys in the next one later this week. Give me like 4 or 5 days, and I'm going to do an update video on this one. Thanks for sticking around. We'll see you guys in the next one.